Hello there. My name is Augustina Osabute. Thank you all for joining us today and on our program, Our Environment, Our Life. I'd like to welcome all of you on Zoom who have joined us on Zoom and on Facebook today. This is going to be our first program for Teen Leadership and Entrepreneur Development Foundation on Our Environment, Our Life. Each of us has a part to play in keeping our environment. So Teen Leadership and Entrepreneur Development Foundation has taken it upon ourselves to install into the young ones the skills in environmental management and protection. And for our first program, we have here with us Dr. Kenneth Bansa, who is going to take us through our topic, Galamsey and the future of the child. Dr. Bansa, you are welcome on our platform and we really appreciate your availability. So if you don't know anything about Teen Leadership and Entrepreneur Development Foundation, what we do is to mentor and coach teenagers to achieve their career goals. And we also engage young adults to explore their skills in leadership management. So thank you all for joining us today. Dr. Bansa received his PhD in mining engineering from Missouri University of Science and Technology in the United States. He holds a Master's of Science degrees in Geological Engineering and Technical Communication, and a Master of Philosophy degree in Mining Engineering. He also had his Bachelor's in Mining Engineering. He is the Director of Mining and Community Research, a nonprofit organization that promotes sustainable development in poor mining communities through research and stakeholder engagement. He has researched extensively in Galamsey and small-scale mining and has shared and published his research findings in top international journals and conferences. So, Dr. Bansa, I hope I didn't miss anything in your introduction.
That's fair enough. It's okay.
Thank you so much for joining us again today. So we'll just quickly zoom in into why we are here today. So what is mining and community research about? Can you briefly tell us what mining and community research is about?
Right. Thank you so much, Augustina, for this opportunity to talk to you and to talk to many others who are interested in the subject of Galamsey and small-scale mining in general. So basically, mining and community research, what we do is do research, right, in poor or deprived mining communities. And we go around, collect data, and then we sometimes workshop with children and community leaders, to understanding the drivers of Galamsey, especially children or child participation in Galamsey. So we will try to understand some of these things in order to write on policy directions, trying to advise government or authorities on what need to be done in order to improve our socioeconomic lives in that perspective. So it's more like a broad-based thing that we do, but the main focus is on promoting sustainable development. That's basically the main focus.
Thank you very much for that. So I was part of mining and community research when I was in Ghana, and it's a very good initiative, and I will urge all of us to join if you're really interested in research and interested in giving back to community or society. So on our topic for today, Galamsey and the future child. What is Galamsey, Dr. Bansa?
Well, the word Galamsey is actually an adulterated English phrase, right? That is like gather them and sell or gather and sell. So basically, we understand history tells us that when the Europeans came into the country in Ghana to begin mining, they would say to the our ancient parents to gather them and sell it. But these people wouldn't be able to say that. So to say gather them and sell, they were unable to do that, and they adulterated it to say Galamsey, Galamsey, and so that is how the word Galamsey came about. But basically, it is the oldest form of mining in Ghana, and generally had involved the use of simple hand tools like shovels and pickaxes for digging river banks, even river basins, and then waterlogged areas in search of gold. And it was also done in the diamond fields. Until recently, where we have an increased participation from well to do people, Ghanaians and foreigners, where we have been able to push in a lot of money and buying excavators and like big mining equipment into the Galamsey field. It generally had actually been involved basically with the use of simple handheld tools. So we dig the ground for gold or diamond in Galamsey.
So, an article published in 2014 shows that 10,000 children, it is estimated that 10,000 children are involved in Galamsey in Ghana. So, what do you think drives children to get involved in Galamsey?
Well, I don't know about the article you're talking about, but that would probably be an underestimation, right, of the number of children who are involved in Galamsey in Ghana. As you rightly said, we have been going around the mining communities, right? And you would recall that even the few ones that we went to, if we go to a community and then we speak to children, more than about 100 of them would say that they do Galamsey one or the other. So if we have gone to about 5 communities and then we have like more than 100 in each of these communities, then in those just 5 communities, there are like more than 500 children who participate in Galamsey. So to say that 10,000 people or children are involved in Galamsey is basically an underestimation, right? But beyond that, what drives children into Galamsey? Basically, everybody will tell you it's economic or financial reasoning, which is true. And poverty is thrived in most of the communities that we have in Ghana, especially in those mining endowed communities. So poverty is one of the drivers. Parents' inability to raise income to support their children will sometimes force children into Galamsey. Another thing that probably we have not spoken so much about is about not naturally, not artificially, in code, pushing children to Galamsey, right? But it's more like the parents do Galamsey. So they decide to go to work and then their children follow them to work. So it's not a parent intention to take the child or to push the child into Galamsey, but children learn quickly. So as a parent takes them to the sites or the Galamsey site all the time, and the children observe, they begin to start doing certain actions, and then within a short time they also become child minors. So these are the two main things that would make a child end up in Galamsey, basically in Ghana.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bansan. So if you just joined us, this is Teen Leadership and Entrepreneur Development Foundation. And today on our program dubbed Our Environment, Our Life, we are talking on the topic Galamsey and the Future Child. And we have with us here Dr. Kenneth Bansa, who is a renowned professor in mining engineering. So he has a lot for us. He's the director of mining and community research. And what they do is they do a lot of research in communities affected by mining activities. And he has a lot of experience for us involving children who get into Galamsey. As he has already explained to us, Galamsey means gather and sell, but people now call it Galamsey. So we are going to move on with that. I would like to encourage you to put your questions if you are here on Zoom with us in the Zoom chat box. If you are on Facebook, kindly put your questions in the comment box and we'll get Dr. Bansa to answer your questions for you. Now let us move on into the socio-economic effects of Galamsey on the future of the child. So we'll start with education. There's been a lot of school dropouts, especially in the mining communities. What was your observation visiting these communities? How will this affect the future of the child and the country?
Well, that's a very important subject, right? Because a lot of the communities where we have small scale mine or Galamsey, you have issues of child dropout, from schools. Absenteeism is increased, and a whole lot of social issues that are going on. And education is one of the biggest one among them. And you would realize that a lot of the children would begin to go into Galamsey side. They begin to make money, and that I think that they feel like they are big guys now. I mean, what is cool? If you recall, in one of the communities that we visited, you remember I used to ask the children, what do you want to do in future? And some of the children would say, when I grow up, I want to do Galamsey, right?
Yeah.
So at that very young age, like 3, 4, 5, or 6, the child is telling you they want to do Galamsey, then you would appreciate where we are heading to, right? In terms of development or socioeconomic development in the country. But let's get back to the issues of why there would be an increased child dropout or absenteeism in school. These guys would typically go into the mining site or the Galamsey site, begin digging, over the weekends, and they start making small monies. So they become so excited about the whole process. And on Monday, instead of going back to school, they decide to continue. And at a point in time, and as you rightly recall, some of the teachers will say that these guys come to school and then if they're even doing something wrong and they try to point them out, they feel uncomfortable and they feel like they are making monies more than their teachers, right? So eventually there's this kind of disagreement between the students or the child and then the teachers, and then eventually the children will drop out. So it is a big issue that is going on. And if we are saying that the children are the future of the country and they are dropping out of school and they are not getting educated, then it means that our future looks a bit bleak, in that regard. So it is one of the critical areas that we have to pay attention. It appears to me that all the effort that have been made towards trying to streamline the mining sector in Ghana had been done without due regard to child participation in Galamsey, which is one area that I think much attention must be given.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Bansha. So we'll move on to the social life of the child. You've already touched on the children getting enough money that even they think they are too big to obey their teachers in school. What do you think these children use the money for?
Well, okay, let's understand this clearly. There are some children that have genuine reasons to go into Galamsey in terms of like trying to raise income to support your education? I know a lot of people, and you agree that we interview a lot of children who, not even adults or people in the university, in the secondary school, or in the JSS, who said they had ever done Galamsey before, or they were into Galamsey, and then you try to understand them, and they say that they needed the money to pay their school fees, right? So we have people who actually, and like I said, due to financial constraint on their parent, they get into Galamsey, and then they make the money to pay their school fees or to buy stuff to go to school, etc. So there are people like that. There are other group of children who typically will raise the money, and then it's for chop, right? They just somebody, a friend or some guy had some nice watch or some chain or something or some shirt. They want some, or some shoes. They want it, and stuff like that. There was a time somebody had intimated that they sometimes use it to buy drugs and things like that. But I don't think that going around in the communities that we ever visited, we came across those kind of thing, that the children actually participate in Galamsey to raise money to buy drugs. I don't doubt that information, but I have personally not been told by any children or been observe anything that relates to that subject. So, like I said, there are varied reasons, and the main thing that they typically will tell you has to do with the economic aspect and raising money to take care of accommodation and things like that. There are people that would go into Galamsey, raise the money, and take care of their younger children, and which I know you are aware about some of these things, going around the community. So there are a lot of reasons for them to get into, and everyone's reason is unique. And sometimes when they tell you these things, you might even want to cry with them, trying to understand where these guys are coming from. Sometimes we feel like we have suffered in life so much to get to where we are. But when we listen to the stories of others, we realize that, man, yours was quite better than, far, far, far better than some of these experiences these children are going through.
Yeah, definitely. I was part of mining and community research, and I heard all this information from the students. So I'm a witness of all that you've just said. So we've talked about the social economic effects of Galamsey on the future of the child. So I want to encourage everyone out there, if you are here on Zoom, just put your questions in the chat box for us. And then also, if you're on Facebook, kindly put your questions in the comment box, and Dr. Bansa will happily answer your questions for you. We'll move on into the health impacts of Galamsey on the future of the child. So with my involvement with mining and community research, I got to know that the children involved in Galamsey perform tasks including pulling and carrying of ore, shoveling ore, crushing ore, washing the ore. They use those wooden boards. They do panning, amalgamating of the ore, and burning the amalgam. So this will lead to the children having long-term health conditions. Could you please elaborate on that and how this affects the future of the child?
Well, so basically, there are two main issues that arise from child participation in Galamsey, and one of them is the socioeconomic aspect, and the other one is the health implications of their involvement. And as you rightly pointed out, the children go into the site. They either carry the load in a pan, head pan on the head. Others would push wheelbarrows. Others will use the shovels and the pickers to dig. They do a whole lot of things in there, and then some even handle the material, the rock material with mercury, that is used in extracting the gold. Now, so if you look at this chain of activities, then you can trace what can happen to the child along these. So if you take a child, for example, who carries a head load of things all the time, then there's a potential for this child to develop some skeletal problems, right? That has to do with all the time carrying things on your, and then you exert some kind of pressure on your backbone and then your nerve systems, and you may get deformed as you grow older. Or even today, even you don't experience that effect now, you would have that effect tomorrow, maybe 10, 20 years, or even 30 or 50 years after you were exposed to those situations. Beyond that, what is most critical has to do with the toxic substances that we tend to produce during mining. We have what they call heavy metals, right? Those heavy metals would be like metals like arsenic, cadmium, and all those metals that get generated. These are toxic metals, and they get released during the mining. So when children are exposed to this, they can have a lot of health implications, which can even affect their neurons, and then mental retardation, and then a whole lot of problems. And one of the very, very, very important things that I think we have not even paid much attention to has to do with pregnant women, right? Women who are pregnant and working in Galamsey side or mining side, they get exposed to some of these heavy metals, and then it can even harm their children in different ways before they are born. But one important thing that we don't have to lose sight of is mercury. Okay, mercury is a common thing that is used to extract gold in the Galamsey side, and usually we'll find mishandling of this mercury by the gold miners, I mean the adult gold miners, and the mercury gets released into the environment, and they get into the soil, the plant takes them up, and then we go and then feed on these plants like mango or orange or cassava or whatever it is. Now, between an adult and then a child, because the child is not developing, the effects of these heavy metals or mercury, for example, on a child is greater. It's largest in a child than an adult, unless that adult has health implication, underlying health conditions already. But if you put everything, we try to say everyone is normal, then the child will suffer most, compared to an adult who is also exposed to similar thing. So it is very, very important that we pay much attention to the health aspect of child participation in Galamsey. And I think that I said we have not paid much attention to child involvement in Galamsey in Ghana. There's like about 10% to 0% attempts, of how to handle child participation in Galamsey. And it is very important we focus on this thing to mitigate some of these health concerns, because Galamsey can actually affect the child development in terms of the health regarding mental issues, issues that relate to toxic substances that may even cause them some kind of blindness or something in future. Some of these effects we are not even, they may not be immediate, right? They may not be immediate when the child is exposed to those toxic substances. It takes some years, 20, 30 years and then they will be experiencing the effect. So it's even very difficult for health professionals to actually identify the main cause of it, because it is some like 20, 30 years thing, right? And the
Yeah.
actions are not immediate oftentimes in some of these things. It looks
Yeah.
like I'm talking too much.
No,
Maybe
it's
question.
okay.
Yeah.
It's really okay. You are really explaining things to us. So just to chip this one in, like here in the US, there are companies that were doing mining activities like 100 years ago. And when you go to some communities, some of the citizens or community members get some long-term effects from this mining activities that were not regulated at that time. And like diseases like cancer and like other diseases. So they were able to trace back to those companies and then made them liable to pay for the health expenses of these victims. But back in Ghana, there is nothing of such in Ghana. And even people are just getting involved in this Galamsey. So you cannot hold anyone liable for these actions. So these children tend to suffer in future. And then it really hinders the development of a country like Ghana. Um, so with a follow-up question on what you said about the diseases that people get. So someone in a community that there is Galamsey happening over there will say, okay, I don't go to the Galamsey site, so I'm not going to get any effect. But from my little reading, mercury volatiles. And then, so if they get into the water bodies, what do you think can happen to the whole community? Because if someone is just saying, I don't go to the Galamsey site, so this nothing will happen to me, or I'm not going to have this health complications. Do you think it affects them in any way?
Well, that's a great question. But before I go in, let me comment on what you said about tracing back uh, to identify which organization or company caused a mess, 100 years ago in the United States.
Mm.
So over here, you would understand or acknowledge that we have the system works for itself.
Yeah.
There's a database that can trace who was at this location at this time, and so that is basically how that can be done. But in Ghana, we don't have anything like that. We don't have any database that can actually identify who works at where, such that 100 years time, we can take them to the courts or somewhere, and then they have to deal with the issue. Beyond that is also the issue of registration, right? How do we register people? I mean, unlike the US, where you may have to put a bond or somewhere, some money somewhere, investment somewhere, we don't have that system in Ghana. And the unfortunate thing is that because we don't regulate Galamsey, okay, we don't regulate Galamsey, so that is one of the fundamental problems. Now, one of the main things that we need to talk about in terms of the health implications of Galamsey is that the health aspect affect everyone. It doesn't affect only people who are on the site working. Okay, we have situations where the people get to the site and then even buy the sand, what you call tailings, the end product of the mining, bring them home for building construction purposes. Now note that this sand or waste sand has mercury in them. Okay, and then they come and pile them in the communities, and then you have children playing. When we're children, you make some holes in the sand, and then we'll sometimes put water inside, go and catch a crab and put it in. So children will play with sand, automatically, right? And they go and touch the sand. They have mercury stuck on their hands. They go home, they don't wash their hands well, and then they put their hands in food they eat, and they transfer the mercury into their system straight away. Now they go home, their hands, they touch doorknobs or somewhere, cooking utensils or anything, and then the parent or other children or other people in the house would also touch these things, and then unknowingly they put these things, ingest them into their system. Now there is also this issue about people burning the amalgam, what you call amalgam. So amalgam, for the benefit of your audience, is when you add mercury to get the gold. The combination is what you call an amalgam. Now they burn it. You have to burn it to get the mercury out, and then have the gold intact. What typically you would do is that when they are burning it, we have the smoke or the fumes, going out in the communities, and this is an airborne thing. So you may be somewhere in your room, and then you will be breathing in poisonous gas that somebody is doing in the kitchen or somewhere, near your house or something like that. So that's two. The third one has to do with like the mercury or the toxic substances getting into our water bodies, right? So they are mining at the top there, and the stream is going down a community somewhere about several kilometers down the line, and the only source of water for these people to drink is that water. So they go and fetch it, and then they drink it without knowing that it has what mercury in it, and then so we transfer it. And the other one is what I also talked about. It gets into the soil, the plant will take it up. So, for example, you mine in an area, and then the toxic substances get into the soil. You plant your cassava or your yam or whatever in there. The plant will absorb this. You go and fetch them, and then you eat them. If you don't eat them directly, you sell them to the public. So anybody at all, I mean, over here in the US here, the government is concerned about Galamsey in Ghana and other countries because of these kind of toxic substances that can get into the food chain and then be imported into the country to cause health implications in their own countries. So it's a broad-based thing, right, that go in various dimensions. So everyone is at risk. It shouldn't be the people who are directly involved in the mining activity. It covers everyone. Wherever you are at risk, whether you are somewhere, even if you are in America or United Kingdom, you are Ghanaian, your family member may buy you some gari or kobe or something and then ship it to you. You eat it. If it has mercury, you consume the mercury. Okay. If it is not a family member who is shipping a thing to you, you might go to the market and buy chocolate made from cocoa from Ghana. Now, a lot of the cocoa farms have been contaminated with these kind of heavy metals or toxic substances due to Galamsey. So they get into the cocoa plant, you eat them, and then that's how it goes on. So everybody is at risk, not only the people who are directly involved in the activity.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Bansan. So as we know, everyone is at risk, no matter where you are. If we do not do this Galamsey safely, its negative effects is very serious. And so we really need to pay much attention to it, especially with child participation in Galamsey. So Dr. Bansan, would you say child participation in Galamsey is child labor? And what institutions are supposed to make sure that this is mitigated?
Well, it's difficult to actually say child participation is child labor. I mean, you know that when you talk about child labor, we are talking about some international thing, you know. Yes, of course, uh, some child participation is child labor, right? But like I did explain earlier, there are situations where it's not the parents or the adult's intention to take the child to work.
Mhm.
Okay, they go to work and they don't have any other person to take care of them. And let us be very frank with ourselves. I guess you and most of your audiences here uh, have engaged in farming before. I was my father was a police officer, but we're doing farming. And as a child, my parents would go to the farm and they take us along. The intent is not to give us cutlass or hoe to weed, right? But you'll be there playing, on the farm and you see them weeding, and then you go and get a hoe or cutlass and you also start practicing, right? And sometimes you come and say, hey, stop, you cut yourself or something like that, right? But you don't listen. When they move away, we go and then even sometimes take sticks and then we start to use the sticks as weeding tool. So if we are being frank with ourselves in that dimension, I wouldn't agree with people who would call that child labor because nobody is taking the child to go and work or to make money or something like that. But there are situations where parents would actually, and you recall that some of the children told us that their parents said they should go and do galamsey to make money to take care of themselves because their friends are also doing it, right? So those ones, and then you may consider them as child labor. There are also situations where the parents go to the job, they go and carry the load, and then they feel that going with all the children to carry more load will make more money. Okay, so that you may also consider. But I don't think that all instances of child participation could be described as child labor. Of course, I mean, there are organizations, and in Ghana, I think that you know which organization must be responsible, and this child rights people too are also there. Those are non-government and the government agencies that should be responsible for doing that. The problem that we have is that still Galamsey is not a regulated activity, mine activity in Ghana. Okay, so it is pretty difficult for even institutions which are mandated to be responsible for these mining sectors. So, like the Minerals Commission, which has to reform the mining sector to ensure responsible mining. Unfortunately, because they don't have mandate over Galamsey, if you go to Galamsey, what are you going to tell them? That do it this way or do it that way? Because you don't have any mandate over them, right? Yes, and you even risk yourself going to certain Galamsey side. You may end up getting harmed or something like that. So these are some kind of challenges that we face in the country, in terms of what to do to getting children out of Galamsey, or who protect children in Galamsey or something like that. But if there are a situation where we can even identify the parents of these children and then cause them, you can end up arresting the parents. But if they don't have money, they don't have money, right? Yeah, they get discharged, they go back. If you put the parents behind bars, or you prosecute them and the court jails them, they get into prison. Who takes care of the children? You tend to even compound the situation the more. So there are sensitive aspects of the whole thing, but the whole thing has to do with structures. We need a comprehensive structural adjustment program in order to put us in the right direction regarding some of these things.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Vansa. So actually, we just zoomed in into the solutions to children involvement in Galamsey. and we just talked about some of the institutions that are involved, that can be involved in mitigating children involvement in Galamsey. So, Dr. Bansha, I'm going to talk about the health aspects again. Uh, what adequate measures can be put in place in the health sector to mitigate the involvement of children in Galamsey? Now, I ask this question because the expansion of Galamsey and the involvement of children in these areas, it's really on a high rise. And sometimes we get even children or like women. I'm going to be a little bit biased here. Girls getting involved in this galamsey. If they get involved in prostitution at the galamsey site just to make money. And this leads to single parenting. This leads to getting a lot of like contracting a lot of diseases like HIV and then sexually transmitted diseases. So what do you think the health sector can do about that in their own way in mitigating this, especially teenage pregnancy and all these things happening?
Well, we still come back to the issue of regulation. And I have said this many times and over that we don't have any regulations regarding informal mining or galamsey in Ghana. Okay, so if there is no supervisory responsibility or oversight, then how do we get certain things done? What you said, yes, there are things that happen. In fact, it is not. I always disagree with people who say that Galamsey is promoting child prostitution and is this. There's not enough evidence to support that kind of argument because there are child prostitutes in Accra where there's no galamsey. Okay, there's teenage pregnancy in a lot of the areas where there are no galamsey. So we don't have sufficient evidence to support or to sustain that kind of argument. But I don't also disagree with you that yes, indeed, we have incidents of child prostitution or incidents of teenage pregnancies, in mining dominated communities. But the point is that are we able to say that it is indeed Galamsey that is causing that? Okay. Or is it because of increased economic activity? Now there's a lot of money in the pocket of a lot of people to abuse it anyhow. Okay. So we need to go beyond that kind of assessment to really understand and appreciate the subject properly. Now, back to your issue of the health thing about how the health professionals can understand incidents going on and things like that. It leads to me more that through research, got to understand that there are a lot of health stuff that are going on that health professionals do not have any knowledge about. I think that it is basically due to lack of knowledge, of what is happening. So if you're a health professional, I mean, on your own, you can begin to read more about mining, right? And or Galamsey. What do they do in Galamsey? What are some of the things that can get released due to Galamsey and things like that? And to get a fair appreciation that if you observe a skin rash on a child or an adult in a mining community, then what are the potential causes of that? So they need skills training. I mean, knowledge acquisition. It's not like about cutting wounds and dressing wounds. You need to read why. So if the system itself is not training people in this direction, giving them that kind of exposure they need, then as individual health professionals, we can actually advance our skills by reading, wide on our own, especially for a health professional in a mining community. You need to understand what goes on in your environment. Okay, what goes? You don't have to isolate yourself from every other activity going on in your community and focus on practicing your health thing. You need to be a broad-based person. Look beyond your scope and understand what goes on in your environment.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Bansa. So obviously, there are no structures in place in all the institutions to help mitigate child participation in Galamsey. But we as individuals, especially an individual health practitioner in the mining community, can do can broaden his or her horizon about the health um, implications of Galamsey in the community, so that at least when someone is admitted at a hospital or at a clinic, you know how to go about treating the person. So, Dr. Bansa, we have a few questions here. I know we have to let you go very soon, but we need to get the audience questions answered too. So, we have a question from Samuel Sibyl. Thank you very much, Doctor and Miss, for this topic. What education do you have for parents who get their daily bread from these little children? Like, I think children getting involved in Galamsey and then they're giving the money to their parents. So I think that's what he meant.
Someone, do you have an interesting question? But uh, the point is that I mean, who would advise uh, the child to go, a child as little as 3 or 4? And Augustina would tell you that we have children as early as 2, right? 2, 3 years. Doing Galamsey. Somebody would be like 7 years, and you ask them, what when did you start Galamsey? And then he would point out like 3 years ago, meaning that he started Galamsey at the early age of 3 or 2. And you would ask them why. They would say, oh, my father, my mother, or something like that. And some of them, oftentimes they are single parent, right? So usually we have this kind of incident, and I wouldn't personally advise any parent to send their children to Galamsey side, because Galamsey side actually is like a red zone, right? Anything at all can happen. It's not a regulated, even the regulated mining enclaves. It is dangerous to take children there, unprotected, let alone a small scale mining or Galamsey site that is poorly handled by miners. Yeah.
We have another question here. Dr. Bansa, in your own perspective, do you consider Galamsey to be good or bad? How do you think it can be sustained? That's from Jones.
Yeah, Jones, nobody in the right frame of mind at this stage would say that Galamsey is good, right? And so I am always of the view that we can make Galamsey better. Not Galamsey, but small scale mining. Okay, we need reforms. We need regulation, proper reforms that could improve environmental performance and ensure that we are mining responsibly. That can be done. In the United States here, there are a lot of small scale mining areas, and these mining areas are not polluting our waters or destroying the environment. Okay, so it can be done. It can be done, except that we need that zeal, the knowledge, and the skill to be able to do that. So it is critically important that we focus on sustainable interventions to improve the mining sector generally in Ghana. So it's not something that I would say is good or bad, but what is happening now is not something to be heard of. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bansa. So, our viewers out there, we have to let Dr. Bansa go. If you just joined us, this is Teen Leadership and Entrepreneurial Development Foundation. My name is Augustina Osobute. I am your host for today's Our Environment, Our Life program by Teen Leadership and Entrepreneurial Development Foundation. And we have here with us Dr. Bansa, a renowned mining engineer. And our topic was focused on Galamsey and the future child. So we have to let him go. I'm sorry, we have to bring him back again so that he can ask all your questions. But for now, we have to let him go. And we thank you all for joining us today. Dr. Bansa, could you please us your final remarks, and we'll let you go.
Okay, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to share the little that I know with everyone here and whoever would watch it later on. But before I sum what we discussed up, let me quickly address Michael's question. It says that when given the chance to preach against Galamsey, what would he say? What will I say? I'm not a person, I'm not one person that preaches against Galamsey or preaches for Galamsey. Like I said, I preach for the promotion of sustainable mining. The reason is that if you look at the small scale mining sector in Ghana, it is the largest employer in terms of mining. It employs more people than the large scale mines. We're talking roughly about 20,000 or less people, in the large scale mines. But in small scale mining and Galamsey sector, we're talking about more than 3 million people. That is more than 10% of the total population in the country. So I talk about how to reform the sector to making it better so that people in the communities can live a better life. Another reason why I advocate for sustainable small scale mining is the issue of what happens to the gold that I think that Michael, you have, if you have not seen any gold that you have seen in Ghana will be gold that is produced by Galamsey or small scale mining. The large scale mines produce the gold and nobody ever sees them. They get out. You may be born in Ghana, you could be 100 years old, and you never have seen gold in the country until you die or something like that. But the Galamsey gold is what typically we use to produce the jewelries, the rings, and all those things that people see locally on the market. So if we can improve the sector, then of course we can make things better for people and then the country at large. In recent times, the small scale mining sector, which includes Galamsey, have produced close to about $2 to $3 billion, in terms of revenue. That's how much money comes out of that. Could you imagine if we are trying to improve the sector, what amount of money that we're going to earn from that sector alone and to support the country's growth? So it is something that we really need to understand and do it well in order to benefit a lot of people and the country in general. On this note, I thank you so much for coming, and I appreciate your time and also giving me the opportunity to join you. I'll be more than grateful to talk more on small scale mining or mining in general and everything that you want us to talk about. So in conclusion, it is important that we try to look at interventions that will help to remove children from Galamsey or small scale mining, because the continued disregard for them would not inure to the benefit of the country. I am always available. You can connect me on Facebook, or you can find me on LinkedIn or anywhere that you want to do that. Okay, thank you. And then I can answer questions later on,
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Bansha, and thank you to everyone who joined us today. Those on Zoom, kindly stay back for us. And please, I would like to plead with you that please kindly like and follow us on Facebook, Teen Leadership and Entrepreneur Development Foundation. On YouTube, please subscribe to our channel. We have a lot of programs there. Our Environment, Our Life is one of our programs. We also currently have Talk on STEM Careers program. We have coding and programming class ongoing. Today, 6 p.m. Ghana time, we'll be having coding class. And then also kindly follow us on LinkedIn, Teen Lead Foundation. On YouTube, it is Teen Lead Foundation. And then on Instagram too, we have Teen Lead Foundation. Thank you all for joining us today. And we are going to bring you another Our Environment, Our Life program, May 29th. That is the 4-panel program concerning the environmental issues in Ghana. So we have very intelligent and experienced people, environmentalists, who will be joining us for that. So thank you so much for joining us today, and see you at 6 p.m. on coding class. Have a good weekend. Thank you. Those on Zoom, please stay. Thank you so much.